Welcome, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome. You are tuning in to day 3 of Entrepreneur Week, sponsored by the Foundation for Economic Education. And today we're going to talk about financial freedom with some very special guests. I'm really excited about today's presentation because something that my father taught me very early on in life is that most dreams die not for a lack of vision, but for a lack of provision. And he defined provision not merely in terms of possessing financial resources, but possessing the skill and the mindset necessary to leverage the resources at your disposal in order to get things done. When you think about it, creative ideas are common, but the ability to execute is what's rare. If you can figure out how to take ideas and move them from concept to completion, you have discovered the thing that makes you truly indispensable. But yet, this is a very difficult thing to do for many people because we live in a society that teaches us that it takes money to make money. And so, if you don't feel like you have the money to get things done, well, what do you do other than sit back and passively wait on someone else to come along and financially rescue you? I was just in California just this past weekend. I appeared on the Minimalist podcast with the release of their new book, Love People, Use Things. And when I was on my flight back, I had this great conversation with this filmmaker who said, I have so many ideas and I know so many other people who do, but it feels like you have to be a millionaire just to do anything nowadays. And we began to have a conversation about the abundance mindset and the nature of true wealth. And one of the things that we talked about is how money is really just a symbolic representation of creative power. And that true wealth is the ability to learn how to make money when you don't have it. And that begins with the mindset of thinking about wealth in unconventional ways. And today, we're going to learn how to do just that. The two guests that I have today are both self-made entrepreneurs. They have both educated themselves on financial literacy, and they understand financial literacy in terms of more than just managing the money that you have. But they also understand financial literacy in terms of how to get to a place of being in debt or having no money to a place where you are prospering and flourishing. And both of them are committed to helping individuals live a flourishing and free life on a financial level. So we're going to have both speakers. Each of them will have 20 minutes to talk. And then after their 20-minute presentations, we're going to bring them both out together and we will have a panel discussion where you will be able to submit questions and ask them whatever you want. And the three of us will discuss them together. Our first presenter today is Keysia Williams. I'm so excited about Kezia being here today. She is the CEO of The Black Upstart and the CEO of My Black Receipt. And she's on the advisory board for Pepsi Dig In, which is a venture devoted to supporting Black-owned restaurants. And she is the author of My Black Entrepreneur, and she is committed to helping Black people achieve economic freedom. She told me her favorite quote today, and I've got to read it to you. It's so good. It says, "Billion-dollar dreams are not birthed with bargain basement work ethic." I love that. I love that. Today, Keysia is going to talk to us a little bit about her story and the wealth mindset. Keysia, thank you so much for joining us today. The floor is all yours.
Thank you so much, TK. I absolutely love your intro. It's not just about vision, but you also have to have provision. I was reaching for my cell phone because that was absolutely tweetable. I really love that. And I'm looking forward to having this conversation with you all today. As TK said, my name is Kezia Williams, and I am the CEO of a lot of things. But usually I start with I am the CEO of the Black Upstart, and I train Black entrepreneurs to start businesses that create jobs. So I want to bring you greetings from entrepreneurs, Black entrepreneurs across the country who are doing the hard work to create jobs, but also to create value. Today, I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you, not only about entrepreneurship, but also about wealth creation. Today, we're going to be talking about not only my favorite movie, which is Black Panther. I'm not not sure if you've seen Black Panther. I'm not sure if you've been on TV within the past couple of years where you've seen folks go Wakanda forever, but it was a movie that centered around a young king that had to make critical decisions about a nation. It required him being entrepreneurial. It required him, T'Challa, demonstrating leadership, and it also required him turning obstacles into opportunities. So today, my speech to you all is entitled 3 Business Lessons That I Learned from Black Panther. Are you ready to go? If so, if you're at home, I want you to give me a Wakanda Forever vibe, okay? So the first lesson that I learned from Black Panther is that how you gonna win when you ain't right within? Come again. Shout out to Lauryn Hill. I'm not sure if anyone is fans of hers out there. I'm definitely a fan of hers. But essentially, how are you gonna win when you ain't right within? Wakanda is the mythical nation which was at the center of the Black Panther narrative. Wakanda was built on a meteor site that was composed of vibranium. Now, if any of you all are comic book fans, one of the things you should know is that vibranium is one of the most precious metals in the Marvel universe because this metal can not only acquire, store, but also release kinetic energy. So whenever you saw the Black Panther or T'Challa fighting, right, he would be punching the bad guys and the bad guys would be punching back. But instead of him getting weaker, right, the punches meant to make him weaker, it actually made him stronger because it absorbed the energy and it made him more powerful. Vibranium sold in the Marvel universe for $10,000 per gram, okay? In Wakanda, it was stated in comic books that Wakanda was built on 10,000 tons of vibranium. I'm going to put that number in context for you. 1 ton of vibranium is 907,000 grams. So if you have your calculators handy, if you have your cell phone near you, I want you to multiply 907,000 by 10,000. I tried it on my cell phone, and I promise you, my calculator was like, I quit. That is too many numbers. And so Wakanda was a highly valuable nation. And kings like T'Challa and his father, who was unfortunately assassinated, felt like they had to keep the nation safe. And so they masqueraded as a third world country, and they sold little pieces of vibranium in order to send their best and brightest out into the world to learn knowledge, to develop their skills and also their aptitudes, and bring it back in order to make Wakanda stronger. The reason why I start with that is because part of the strength of Wakanda existed from within. And that was one of the lessons that I had to learn early on in life. When I was a high school student, one of my goals was to be the next female Dennis Rodman. I'm not sure if there's any Chicago Bulls fans out there, but I wanted to be the next female Dennis Rodman because he was one of the most powerful, in my opinion, and talented forward centers in the game of basketball. I wanted to be the first woman to play in the NBA. And so my entire life in high school was structured around reaching those goals. I used to play basketball with the guys in my neighborhood. I played with my cousin who also played D1 for Virginia Commonwealth University. I played AAU, and I also made the varsity team in my private school, and I was a starter. I averaged 20 to 30 points a game, and my defense was so amazing that fans would call me Mad Dog 2020. In my 10th grade year, I started to get recruited. But since I went to a private Christian school, a lot of the colleges and universities that were recruiting me were Christian schools who were Division III. I was 100% honored that they were recruiting me. But again, I wanted to go to the NBA. So I begged my mom to transfer me to a public school so I could be seen by other recruiters. She obliged. I transferred to a public school. I was able to make the team. I was able to become a starter, and my dreams seemed brighter, right? I knew that I could make this goal. And then days before the first game, the coach sat me down and he said, Kezia, I don't think that I can play you in the first few games. Here's the thing. You play the forward center position, and this position was created for people who were taller and bigger than you. I know you're tenacious, but two girls have just transferred into this high school, and they are 6'2", 250 pounds. So I think that they're going to go ahead and replace you. What you can do is ride this out for a few games, and we'll just see how it goes. I was devastated. Absolutely devastated. I left this office. I ran to the girls' room, tears streaming down my face. I go into the girls' room to have a private moment, and there was another girl in there, and she was crying too. And I'm looking at her like, what could possibly be happening in your day that's worse than mine? Will I really still even be the first woman in the NBA? And I asked her what was wrong. And she told me that she was crying because she received an A- on the history paper. I was shocked. Because up until this point, I had maintained a C- average just to stay on the basketball team. I was not a great student at all, just enough to stay on the court. And so I said, you know what, if I got an A-, I would be excited. She was like, I was really looking to get an A+, but why are you crying? And I told her that I had been benched and I was not going to be playing basketball like I wanted to in this new school. And I thought that my dreams were over. And she said to me that there's more to life than just competing on the basketball court, that I could compete in the classroom. And the light bulb went off. And I realized that what had made me a good basketball player, yeah, it had to do with the dribbling and the hook shots, right? And the scoring. But a lot of it had to do with mindset, right? My mindset motivated me every single day to wake up 2 hours before my teammates, run 2 miles, right? Go to practice, make sure that I stayed the entire practice and after. My mindset motivated me to seek out competition, right? Friendly competition in my neighborhoods and play pickup games. It was my mindset that motivated me to even transfer to a public school to seek additional opportunity. It was my mindset that motivated me to create community with my teammates. It was my mindset that motivated me to even create a goal that I wanted to reach for. My mindset was my greatest asset. And one of the lies that I had told myself is that mindset could just be applied to basketball. So my horizons opened and I realized that this mindset could not only be applied in the court, but could also be applied in the classroom. And I did just that. Graduated from high school with the okay GPA, but going on to college to not only start a college chapter of the NAACP, found the women's pageant, the men's pageant. I also joined the Multicultural Student Association, wrote for the Captain's Log, which was the student newspaper, and I graduated cum laude as an active member of my college campus. My mindset absolutely became my asset. And I want to challenge all of you all to ask yourselves, what mindset do you have that drives you to be an asset in anything that you're involved in? I tell my entrepreneurs all the time that as a woman thinketh, so is she. As a man thinketh, so is she. So I want you to repeat after me. I am the head and not the tail. I'm above and not beneath. My self-worth is my net worth. We heard TK talk about what it meant, right, to become wealthy. But let me tell you something. There are a lot of millionaires that knew they were millionaires before their bank accounts ever hit 7 figures because they believed that they could turn any financial obstacle into a financial opportunity. And the same thing holds true for entrepreneurs. For every entrepreneur that I've talked to, they knew that they could be a successful entrepreneur before they even filed their business paperwork, okay? Before they even, if they were running a business, which at the time other people viewed as losing. Having a wealth mindset, having a winner mindset means that you don't embrace the philosophy of winning or losing, that you embrace the philosophy of winning or learning. The only way you lose is if you quit. Just like Wakanda's secret sauce, right? The value that they held was within the borders of their nation. The same holds true with you. Your greatest asset, your mindset, exists within. Now, the number 2 thing that I teach my entrepreneurs, one of the business lessons that I learned about Wakanda was 1, a side hustle, or number 2, a side hustle is career insurance just in case you decide to quit your job or your job decides to quit you. Now, what does this mean when we talk talk about this within the context of Black Panther. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Wakanda. Wakanda was composed of 4 African tribes, all right? And each one of those tribes had skills that were unique to them. There was a merchant tribe who engaged in trade, so that means they bought and they also sold goods in a marketplace. There was a river tribe. The river tribe, they were able to catch things from the river, right? Make sure to supply them to the community and also take different things around the river and create value for their communities. There was a mining tribe, and they were responsible for mining the vibranium, right? So they would go in, dig up that vibranium, make it useful. And then there was a border tribe, and these were farmers, right? So they farmed the food that the community ate, but they also kept a lookout in order to make sure that the barriers of Wakanda was safe. The tribes worked together in order to create value in the community. And though vibranium, as I mentioned before, was worth $10,000 per gram, vibranium was a tool that had to be leveraged by the skills that were cultivated within the tribe. This was also a lesson that I had to learn at a very young age. My very first job was as a receptionist. And I was so excited to get this job because I had been taught from, again, a very young age that the definition of success was you go to high school, you graduate, and you get a diploma. Then you go to college, you graduate, and you get a degree, and then you go and you get a good government job with benefits. That was the definition of success. I have to say that I reached like 95% of that goal because the receptionist wasn't a government job. It was a receptionist at a law firm, but it was a good job with benefits, and I was excited to have it. So I started working this job at the age of 20 years old when I graduated from college. And I had the tough job every single day of answering the phone and welcoming people in the reception area, which is not hard at all. And one of the partners in the law firm pulled me aside in my first week of work. And he said to me, "Hey, I know you're not doing a lot of challenging work, but you seem to be a very bright young lady. One of the things that the receptionists before you did was they read books in order to increase their knowledge until we were ready to move them to the next level. So if there are any books that interest you, don't be afraid to bring those to work. And when the phone is not ringing and people aren't sitting in a reception area, go ahead and read them." So I was like, oh, bet. During that time, I was a huge buff of Black history. So I was reading a lot of Black history books. And so I brought a few to work, reading them over a couple of weeks. On the 3rd week of work, a partner stopped by my desk. The same partner stopped by my desk. And he said, "You know what? I have to give you kudos." He high-fived me. And he said, "You know what? You've been reading your books. You've been studious about it. And me and my wife are avid readers. Would you mind sharing what book you have read or you're reading now?" And the book that I was reading at the time was entitled Negro. And it was about the etymology of the word. So how did Black people define themselves as African American, Black, Negro? Like, what were the origins of the word? But I was embarrassed to share the name of the book because I thought that it might be a little controversial. So I told him that I was reading a book about history. And he said, "That's great. I love history. History is amazing because history teaches you the lessons that you need to learn for today. What type of book history is it?" So I told him it was Black history. And he said, "That's amazing. That is great. Me and my wife have not read as many Black history books as we wanted to. What is the name of the book?" And I just sat there. And I was so nervous to share the name of the book because, again, I thought it would be controversial, especially since he and I were different races. And so I thought about it. I had an angel over here, and they were saying, "Girl, tell him. Just be bold. Like, this is a book. There was nothing shameful about reading a book like this. Just tell him." They had another angel on my shoulder that said, "Well, this is your job. This is your good job with benefits. Just, tell him that the name of the book is something else." What do you think I told him? I told him that the name of the book was Negro. And he got really red and really embarrassed, but he thanked me for telling him the name of the book and he walked away. This was Friday. I ended up leaving office that day at 5 o'clock. I felt totally guilty for what I did, even though I know that I had done absolutely nothing wrong. I had only done what was asked of me. On Monday, I went back to the office. I did not bring any books that time because I didn't want to have any what I thought was an uncomfortable conversation. And the office manager called me into her office, and she told me that that was my last day at that job and that I was fired. And when I asked her why, she said that I made someone in the company uncomfortable with what I was reading, and now they would have to let me go. And I left that job in complete and utter tears and sadness. And I realized that this job was the only direct connect I had to paying my car note, paying my rent, paying my student loans, which were super expensive, paying for things I needed like food and lights and gas. And I promised myself in that moment, right, that I would never let a hand feed me that also had the power to starve me. One of the things that I was not told before I started looking for employment, when I was taught the definition of success, was that my skills were my superpowers, right? When you put together a resume and you're looking for a job, what that really is a list of skills that demonstrate your knowledge, your capabilities, and your aptitudes, and an employer reviews that and decides how valuable you can be to their enterprise. But here's the amazing thing about the time that you live in right now, is that the economy is changing. There's such a thing as a gig economy, where the same skills that you sell to an employer and get a job, you can sell to a client in many different ways. If you're listening to this and you're a great driver, my grandma's not. My grandma is a wonderful person, but actually this past weekend she bumped into my car with her car. But if you're an amazing driver, you can perhaps sell those skills via Uber, right? If you're great at walking dogs, I just got a new dog, right? You're great at walking dogs, feeding dogs, playing with dogs, training dogs. You can take care of other people's dogs through an application called Rover. Maybe you're great at TikTok. Maybe you just did a whole TikTok dance and you got 100,000 views and 200,000 likes, okay? Maybe you're just that great. You're that amazing. There are people on the website and also the application, Fiverr and Upwork, who will pay you for your skills. Here's the thing. In a market economy, it's important for you to understand the value you create and also the value that people are willing to pay you for. This is especially important for younger people who are entering into an economy that is uncertain. The gig economy allows for you not only to, again, sell your skills to an employer, but also sell your skills to a client, and in an ideal circumstance, do both. I always like to tell my entrepreneurs and wealth creators that having one stream of income is hazardous to your wealth. My next job, yes, I did go on to get another job. My next job, I worked a 9 to 5, but I also started a nonprofit organization. And that nonprofit organization was a financial resource to me so that my job wasn't my sole source of income. Within Wakanda, the skills that the tribes had were their superpowers. Because though vibranium was extremely valuable, it became more valuable in the hands of skilled workers. And so the last tip that we're going to talk about today is this. The only thing that remains the same is change. So one of the things that past Black Panthers did before T'Challa was shield their nation from outside influence. And a big reason for that is that they were scared of what outside influencers may do to the tribes within their barriers. They were afraid of things like the Atlantic slave trade, World War I, World War II. These were things that were discussed within the Marvel comic books. So again, they masqueraded as a third world country, though they were literally sitting on billions of dollars of assets. And T'Challa, when he took the reign as king, decided that he wanted to change that. He looked around the nation and realized that, yes, they sent people out, right? Remember, they sent the best and brightest people out into the world, and then they came back, right? They brought their knowledge, skills, and abilities, and they improved the nation within. He realized, right, that the only thing that remained the same is change, and that the nation will continue changing outside of the borders of Wakanda. And even though they could change within, if both their nation and the nations outside were able to collaborate in a great way, then they would be able to really affect change. Three of the things that they had developed within the walls of Wakanda were Komoyo beads. So these were beads which had advanced communication technology. So that's when you saw T'Challa and his sister talking to each other from their wrists. The claw necklace. So when you saw the Black Panther suit, the necklace that he had were able to essentially cover him in vibranium so that he could use kinetic energy to his advantage. And then also the EMP disc, which was an electromagnetic force that allowed for huge vehicles to be rendered useless, including tanks. That was the opening scene where they threw them on the tanks stopped working, and they were able to have a quick battle where they won. Well, let me tell you a little bit about how change works in an economy. Change works by embracing innovation. Let me tell you a little story about my aunt. As you all know, I train entrepreneurs. My aunt called me and she said, I came up with this new innovation. I want to be an entrepreneur. And this is something that I have an idea that I want to sell, and I can't wait to talk to you about it. And I told her, tell me all about your idea. And she told me that she had created an innovation or an invention where she sold the underwear to pants. And the reason why she did that is she had 3 sons, and every single time they walked out of the door, they would be sagging their pants and she could see their underwear. And she was so scared that their pants would fall to the floor and there would be a little bit of a show that no one asked for. So she thought to herself, if she sewed the underwear onto the pants, then perhaps, right, she could create the type of invention that other people thought were valuable and make a lot of money and make sure that her sons stayed covered. Well, I said, well, Auntie, okay, well, how many people have you talked to anybody about this idea? Before you spend a lot of money on it, let's just maybe kind of go through different ways in which we could solve what you believe is a problem. Well, she said, I already ordered 50 pants. I got this. I'm going to the flea market this weekend, and I'm going to sell all of them, and I'm going to use the money to do something great. She went to the flea market. Guess how many pants she sold? 2 pair. One she sold to her mother. The other pair she sold to her husband, both of which felt obligated to buy the pants, but didn't necessarily think that the pants were valuable and probably wouldn't have bought them. The reason why I say that is if you're thinking about starting a business, it's important for you to think about what value you can create. And value creation looks like what new, original, or important invention can you create that other people will either pay you for or other people deem as useful. We see this in many different ways across our economy, right? We see that cell phones are useful, right? People are able to use cell phones and talk to people anywhere they want to go. But cell phones even evolved through change. There were house phones where people used to have cords, and but so far they could walk. And then there was wireless phones where you could talk inside of your house, but if you tried to take that phone over to your next door neighbor, you would lose reception. Then there were car phones that hooked up into your cigarette lighter. And then there were beepers and pagers. I'm not sure if you all remember that. And after that, there became cell phones where you could talk on your cell phone in the United States, or you could talk on your cell phone in South Africa. That's changing innovation. That's incremental innovation. How can you create value in such a way where people pay you for it or they deem it useful and continue to create value along the way consistently? The reason why I bring this up is that is an entrepreneur's call to action, right? And you don't have to have a lot of money in order to get started. You can do what you can, use what you have, and start where you are. The last example I'm going to give you, because I've already given you 3 tips very quickly, is that I know you're watching this, you may be saying, I don't have a lot of money. TK said that in the intro. Think about entrepreneurs like Issa Rae. You may know her through the HBO series Insecure, but she started by producing a web series on YouTube. And she used the money that she earned from her job in order to curate that series. And that series became very successful. Even the rapper and artist, Pharrell, invested in that series, and she was able to parlay that into an HBO deal. Use what you have, do what you can, and start where you are. And in closing, I want to say first, thank you so much for listening through those tips. But I want to tell you why entrepreneurship is important to me. Entrepreneurship has afforded me the type of freedom to move throughout life in ways where there weren't the usual restrictions. As a Black woman, one of the biggest hurdles I face is the pay gap. Black women will lose $840,000 over their working career, not because they're not twice as smart, not because they don't work twice as hard, but simply because they're Black and they're women. And there are some people in the workforce that believe that perhaps a Black woman isn't as smart as other people who have the same qualifications that they have. Being able to earn my own income, being able to create value for the economy has allowed me to earn income outside of structures that weren't created for me to elevate and also to win. Additionally, being an entrepreneur has allowed me to earn the type of resources to pay for if my grandmother needs groceries and she can't afford them, if my mother has to have a surgery and I need resources in order to buy my time back from an employer that may not want to pay for it, so that I can be there for my mother, right, through thick and also thin, the way she was with me. So, with that being said, thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to chatting with you all with the panel during the panel.
Kezia, that was amazing. Thank you so much for that awesome presentation. For those of you who enjoyed that, you will be able to hear again from Kezia very shortly. She's going to come back for a panel discussion. But before then, we're going to have a presentation by Leo Jean-Louis. Kezia, one thing I really love about your story is when you were reading the book, the Negro book, and you were fired a day later and someone said, well, you made someone uncomfortable here. And you weren't doing anything wrong. You were just being you. And so many times we can preoccupy ourselves with questions like, well, how do I get them to like me? How do I get them to accept me? How do I get them to treat me fairly? And you took your destiny into your own hands by saying, I'm going to switch the question and I'm going to ask, how do I get myself into a place where I render other people's dislike of me completely irrelevant? And I absolutely love that. You said a quote, I think it was something about the hand that starves you. What is that again?
Yeah, any hand that has the power to feed you also has the power to starve you.
That is so awesome because we spend so much of our time begging people who have the food in their hand to just be a
Yeah.
little bit nicer to us when the real way to win the game is to say, nah, I need to learn how to create on my own. It reminds me of this Buckminster Fuller quote that says, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. And that's what you've done in
Mhm.
your personal life. And you're teaching other people to do it. So thank you so much. I look forward to
Thank
chatting with
you.
you again at the Q&A.
Thank you so much, TK. See you soon.
Thank you. Absolutely. You rock. All right. That was awesome. That was awesome. I could go on all day about great points that she made. One thing that I really love that she said, and I'll leave it at this, she said something to the effect of, it's not about winning or losing, but it's about winning or learning. And you're never losing if you're committed to always extracting some kind of life lesson from your disappointing experiences. She used an NBA analogy with Dennis Rodman. I'll use one with Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. There was a game early on in Kobe's career where Michael Jordan performed a move successfully against him. And what Kobe did in the middle of the game was he questioned Michael Jordan. How did you do that? And he had Michael Jordan explain to him how he performed that move. And one of the things that he said later on in his book, Mamba Mentality, is he said, I'd rather suffer the embarrassment of asking a question than suffer the embarrassment of never learning how to win. If you are willing to set your ego aside and do whatever it takes to learn, even if you have a lot of trying and disappointing experiences, you can always keep growing and eventually learn how to take charge of your life. So excellent talk by Kezia. If you have any questions for it, be sure to write them down. You will get the chance to ask her. Next up, Leo Jean-Louis. Leo holds the distinct story of overcoming $250,000 in debt in 2.5 years. Unbelievable. You're going to get a chance to hear him talk about his story. He has been featured on Bankrate, Yahoo Finance, Business Insider, The Steve Harvey Show, and he is known as the Millennial Debt-Free Coach. And his mission in life is to help people get out of debt so they can live the lives they want. And Leo, I'm just excited to hear your story. The floor is all yours.
Awesome, TK. Thanks again for having me here. I am super excited to be with you all. And what an amazing presentation by Kezia. So many gems dropped in there. So Super excited to get on the panel with you, Kezia, and answer some questions. But like TK said, my name is Leo Jean-Louis. I am 33 years old. I'm from the islands. My parents are from Haiti. I am a husband, a father of two beautiful babies. I have a son who's 2 years old, a daughter who's 4 months old. So our hands are full right now, but I am a full-time occupational therapist by day and a certified hand therapist. And that's just a fancy way of saying that I help people who have like injuries to their hand, wrist, elbow, and shoulder. I help them get better. So you're probably wondering, out of all of these things that I just mentioned, why I am qualified to speak to you today about finances during Entrepreneurship Week. Well, I'm glad you asked. So my wife and I paid off $224,000 of debt in 2.5 years. Now, to give you some perspective, there was a study in 2019 that said the average person takes 18.5 years to pay off their student loans, starting at age 26 and ending at age 45. And we did it in just 2.5 years. Most of our debt was primarily from student loans, but we had some credit card debt in there. But we decided very early on that we didn't want to be slaving away, paying people back. And so we took ownership of our time, and that saved us 16 years of our time and a whole bunch of money in the process. Like TK said, we shared our story. It went viral on Instagram. We got invited to go on the Steve Harvey TV show a few years ago. Been featured on Business Insider. Yahoo Finance came to our house to do a segment on us. And in 2018, we started our business, Freedom is a Choice movement, to help millennials get out of debt so they can live the lives they want. So today, I want to talk to you about mastering your money so you can master and own your time. My mom is the hardest working person I know, and I love my mom. I'm a mama's boy, and she's been working 6 days a week for as long as I can remember, like since I was in elementary school. And last year, she was here visiting me here in Atlanta, and she told me something that completely broke my heart. She told me that she could not retire, meaning that she didn't think she could ever stop working. And my heart dropped when I heard this. She's 63 years old, still working 6 days a week. And even though she's the hardest working person I know, her lack of financial resources combined with a bad economy in Haiti are making the decisions for her. And so we were talking about, when's the next time she's coming to visit and all that stuff. And basically she was saying that, hey, I don't know because I have to keep working, meaning she couldn't spend time with her grandchildren because she needed to work. And I want you to think about that for a second. To work until you're 60, meaning for some people who start working early, that can be almost 40 years of your time and still feel like you don't have a choice and that you can't do the things you really want to do. And my mom isn't the only one. There are tons of people who can't retire or can't stop working because they don't have enough money. There's a study that says over 50% of people feel like they will struggle in retirement or are already struggling in retirement because they didn't manage their finances well. And there's about 10,000 people each day who are retiring. And for the next 2 decades, that's what it will be. So today, 10,000 people are retiring and half of them don't feel like they can stop working. 74% of Americans said they plan to keep working after retirement. So the average retirement age is about 65, and 74% of people think they have to work even longer. And so if I were to ask you, which of these two things is your most valuable asset? Which of these two things is the most important? Money or time? What would you say? If you answered time, you answered correctly. And you're probably wondering, why is time more important than money? Because time is limited. There's no way for you to get your time back that you lost, right? As soon as you're born, the clock starts ticking on your time and no one knows how much of it they have left. I've lost money before. I've lost $10 bills before, $20 bills before, and I earned it all back. But my time that I've lost, I can never get that back. And so when you think about these two things, time and money, I want you to prioritize time, because that's one thing that you'll never be able to get back, the amount of time that you've lost. And so I want to give you some examples of how we were able to own our time by making wise financial decisions early on. And would you believe me if I told you that we turned down $50,000 of free money? My wife and I turned down $50,000 of free money. Well, we did. During our debt-free journey, we turned down $50,000 of free money from a loan repayment award that my wife was eligible for. And so my wife is a pediatric nurse practitioner, and there's this loan repayment assistance program that we were eligible to apply for during our debt-free journey. And the way that the loan repayment program worked is that they give you $50,000 in exchange for you committing to work 2 years in an underserved qualifying organization, right? And so by the time my wife was eligible for this program, we were already on our debt-free journey for almost 2 years. And so we still had a good chunk left to pay off. And so this was really enticing for us. But at the same time, we were pregnant with our first boy, our first son. And so my wife didn't want to continue working at the particular job she was at because the commute was over an hour away. So you think about Atlanta traffic, like she absolutely hated it. And one of the dilemmas that she had was, hey, do we take this free $50,000, or do we turn it down and pursue another job closer to home where she wouldn't have to stay in Atlanta traffic? And if you're from Atlanta, Atlanta traffic is terrible. And so that was really something we had to contemplate. But there was a deadline on this loan repayment award when we had to say, hey, whether we wanted to accept it or whether we wanted to decline it. And we had to make that decision before we even had any offers on the table for a job closer to home. So we were pretty much operating by faith. And because we had put ourselves in a good position financially, because we had already started paying off our debt, we started budgeting and managing our money better, we had the option to say no to $50,000 in exchange for us to have our time back. And so think about how many people would have no choice but to accept that money because, one, they were in a bunch of debt. Two, they needed that money in order to make, good progress on their debt. And so they would make the compromise of driving to work for the next 2 years for an hour plus going there and an hour plus coming back, all for the sake of $50,000 and be miserable in the process. But like I said, because we mastered our money, we were able to say no to the $50,000. And a few months later, probably like 6 months later, my wife got a job closer to home, 25 minutes away instead of an hour away. And some of the things that allowed for her is to sleep in more, get up and go to work and only have a 25-minute commute, be less stressed, be less tired. She was able to get home quicker, spend time with our son more. All of those things allowed us to own our time. And so when I'm talking to you today about mastering your money, the money is cool, but it's what the money allows you to do. And it's this thing called time that you'll never get back. And so when you think about decisions, trade-offs that you have to make, you want to measure them in the amount of time that it will require you to do. So if you have to go to a job and trade your time for money, think about all the hours you spend away from doing the things that you want to do. And so I'll give you another example of another way we were able to own our time. So I'm a huge fan of side hustles, and Kezia mentioned side hustles in her presentation. And so we work side hustles for the past 5 or 6 years or so. And we love them. And side hustles are basically another way to earn money outside of your primary job. And recently, this year, the policy had changed at my side hustle regarding how many weekends you had to work. And so my boss came up to me. He was like, hey, we saw that you haven't been signing up for the required number of times. What's going on here? And I explained to him, I have 2 babies. We're going through a lot of transition right now. I just can't commit to working more at this time, but I'd be happy to revisit it once we get through these transitions of, my wife being at home for maternity leave, having 2 new babies, all that stuff, right? And tell me why my manager gave me an ultimatum. He basically said, I would hate for you to lose this position, meaning if you don't work these weekend requirement dates, we're going to have to let you go. And I was heated, y'all. I was so pissed because I had been working multiple weekend dates all throughout my debt-free journey, even before this requirement was put into place. And only recently had everyone else been working multiple weekend dates because of this new policy. And all of a sudden, even after years of giving them multiple weekend dates, just because I have this change in life right now with my 2 babies, you want to give me a hard time and say that if I don't sign up, you're going to let me go. And guess what I said? I politely said, if that's what you want to do, then you can go ahead and do it. But at this time, I cannot commit to working more. He was shocked, y'all. He was expecting me to try to beg to hold this position, not want to be fired and all this other stuff. And I said, hey, if that's what you want to do, go ahead. I just can't commit to that. I'm tired. I don't want to work more right now. I already spent the last few years working this much. I do not want to work as many weekends. And I left it at that. And that was another example of when I felt in control, where I felt I had the power to decide what I wanted for my life. The things that mattered most to me at that time were spending time with my family, spending time with my wife, spending time with my kids, watching them grow, meet their milestones. I did not want to spend my time at work. And so managing our money better and wisely allowed me to be able to turn down a job. Now think of the people who needed the money. Think of people who needed the job to pay their bills and do all this stuff. They would have had no choice but to do something that they hated or didn't want to do. And so the reality is, if you don't take your finances seriously and learn how to manage your money well, you will say yes to a bunch of things that you do not want to say yes to. Examples like staying in a toxic relationship because you're depending on the other person's income, staying at a job you hate, right? These are all examples of ways that other people, your boss or life circumstances, make decisions for you instead of you making the decision for yourself. But if you get this money thing right and you get it early, you take heed of all the things that you're learning this week during Entrepreneurship Week, you can own your time. And what does owning your time look like? Being your own boss, making money while you sleep, taking vacation when you want to without having to ask for permission, waking up when you want to. I know, it's the summertime, but in a few weeks, a lot of people will be having to wake up early in the morning. Well, one day you can sleep in and still do what you want to do. Do what you want to do when you want to do it. Spend time with the people who matter most to you. And money is the tool that gives you the freedom to do the things that you love. And so I want to give you all 4 tips to help you master your money and own your time. So I'm going to leave you with these 4 tips. These are tips that I wish I knew when I was your age, when I was young. And so I want to make sure that if you have a pen and paper, if you have your cell phone, pull out your notes and write these things down because they will change your life. Tip number 1 is to pay yourself first. Whenever you receive money, whether it's money you earn from a job, whether it's gift money, put some of it aside for yourself, to save it, to invest it before you hand it to other people, like paying bills or spending it at a store. So before you hand it to other people, make sure that you put some of it aside for yourself. You can do a certain percentage. You can do 10%, 15%, 20%, but get in the habit of paying yourself first. If you do this, you will always be one step ahead. So that was rule number 1, pay yourself first. Tip number 2 is to spend less than you make. This is one of the golden rules of personal finance, and people get in trouble when they get this part wrong. This is called living below your means, not stretching yourself too thin. And one day you'll be introduced to this plastic card called a credit card that will tempt you to spend money before you even have it It'll tempt you to spend more than you have. And I don't want you to fall into this trap. The card is fine, but the trap of spending more than you actually have is the one that I don't want you to fall into. Okay. And so spend less than you make. That way you always have a little bit of cushion to put money towards your goals of whatever your goals are. If you want to invest money, if you want to buy a home, if you want to go on vacation, whatever it is, put some money aside so you don't end up behind. All right. Tip number 3 is to have multiple streams of income. And Kezia did a great job talking about this with the quote about, the hand that feeds you also has the power to starve you. And so having multiple streams of income is a hedge against that, right? So I want you to find different ways to make money so you're not relying on one source of income. That way, if something happens to your primary job, you have something else to fall back on. So think about this past year with COVID and how many people lost their jobs during the pandemic. And if you only had one job, you were left struggling because you had nothing else to fall back on. And so I want you to think about multiple streams of income like a table with 4 legs on it, right? Let's say one of those legs gets knocked down. That table is still upright a little bit because it has 3 other legs holding it up. And I want you to think about your money in the same way. You heard about the quote, like, never put all of your eggs in one basket. It's the same thing. Never put all of your money in one basket. Always have different sources of income coming in so that you're not left struggling if one of them happens to dry out. Okay. And so that's one of the major keys of winning with your money so that you can own your time. So think about ways that you can earn money outside of your job, finding ways to give value to people, finding something that people struggle with and helping them. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was young, this was probably middle school, I used to sell dollar store candy, so Dollar Tree candy at school because I wanted to buy a basketball hoop. So what I would do is I would go to the dollar store, buy those big, and I don't even think they have them anymore. It's like those big packs of like Reese's or Snickers where they have like the small mini size ones. And I would buy it for $1 and I would sell each piece of candy for 25 cents. So I made like a $1.50 in profit. So I bought it for $1, sold them for 25 cents. There were 10 of them in there. And I made $1.50 profit off of each pack that I bought. And I saved enough money to be able to buy myself a basketball hoop. My mom was in Haiti at the time. I was only in middle school. I didn't want to ask her for money. And so I said, you know what? I want a basketball hoop. I want to save for it myself. And so I didn't even know I was being an entrepreneur at that time. But something in me was like, hey, I can't work right now. I'm not of working age, but let me figure out a way to try to earn some money. And that's literally what I did. And I think the hoop was like $90. And so you think about how many packets of candy I had to sell in order to save that $90. And when my mom came to visit, she found out, like my aunt told her, she found out that I bought it myself. She's like, why didn't you just ask me for the money? And I was like, no, I wanted to do it myself. I didn't want to be a burden. And so that was one example of me being an entrepreneur without even knowing it. So I want you to think outside of the box. I want you to think outside of the box as far as you not needing to trade your time working for someone else in order to make money. You can do that, but also think about ways that you can monetize the skills that you already have. If you're good at graphic design, you can sell your services to other people who need graphic designs, who need logos. If you're good at art, you can say, hey, I'll draw a picture of you if you want to buy that. So think outside of the box of ways that you can monetize the skills and the talents that you have. And the last one that I'm going to leave with you, the last tip, is invest your money. Don't just spend money on things. Spend money on things that put more money into your pocket. That's how you get ahead. That's how you master your money and own your time. So instead of buying Jordans for $300, buy a stock in Nike, who own the Jordans. Instead of buying an iPhone for $1,100 or going on a payment plan for them for the next year and a half, buy Apple stock, who own Apple. So that way, whenever anyone across the world buys Jordans or buys an Apple product, you're getting paid because you become a part owner of that company. That's how you level up your finances. And so if you own an Apple product, you have an iPad, or you have an iPhone, you can own a piece of that company, so that whenever somebody else purchases one of those products, you're getting paid, your money is growing. And so I want you to think about your money in those terms. And I'm going to repeat the 4 tips for you so that you remember them. Number 1 is pay yourself first. Number 2 is spend less than you make. Number 3 is have multiple streams of income. Number 4 is invest your money. And if you do these things, I promise you, you will master your money and own your time. Thanks so much for having me.
Leo, thank you so much, man. That was an excellent talk. So many good points. The thing that jumps off to me the most is the pay yourself first, which feels so counterintuitive and incredibly difficult to do. But I think that's about the mindset, right? You know, if you pay yourself last, or you treat everyone else as if they should have access to your resources first, you condition yourself to think, you know, in a guilty manner about, you know, prioritizing your own dreams and so on. So I really love that point, man. And I'm looking forward to this Q&A that we're going to go into right now, man. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. We got an Q&A. So we've already got some questions coming in, and I will just ask them as they come in, and then we'll wrap up when it slows down. So the first one is, I'm done with college in a couple of years, and am apparently part of a fortunate minority in my generation to graduate almost debt-free. What are your tips for someone in that unique position? We'll start with
Go ahead, Kezia.
Sure. Not a problem. Well, first, I think that is absolutely amazing, because the average college student is graduating with between $20,000 to $32,000 in debt, depending on what your demographic is. So congratulations on however you were able to accomplish that. I'm envious, because Sally Mae was definitely calling me for 10 years to get me to pay her back. What are some of the first steps that you should think about when you are going into your first job, right? So I talked about my first job. Leo talked about his. You want to make sure that you have intentional conversations with HR, if there are benefits, about opening a 401k, a 403b, or a thrift savings plan. These are retirement plans that allow you to contribute towards your retirement while you are still young. Most people make the mistake of saving for retirement when they're close to retirement. So that's what Leo talked about, you know, his mom being 63 years old and thinking about retirement and looking at her finances and asking herself, is this really possible? If you start at 20, 21 years old, you are going to benefit from compound interest. And if you work at a job where there are benefits, one of the things you want to ask the HR professional is if they match your contributions to your retirement plan. Mostly people do not equate retirement plan to investing, but when you invest in a retirement plan, essentially what you're doing is likely investing in mutual funds. And what mutual funds is a collection of stocks that you're investing in that may grow over time. So that would be the first thing that I would recommend. The second thing that I would recommend is that you start a business as soon as possible. Now, starting a business could look like what Leo said, right? You can go and you can buy stuff from a dollar store, buy it for $1, sell it for $3. That's buying low and selling high. You can sell your skills, like I mentioned, on Uber, on Upwork, on Fiverr, on Instacart. You can sell your skills. Or you can look at some multi-level marketing. I know that they get a bad rap, but people who start businesses in that realm are able to take advantage from the tax code. Assets get taxed and business get taxed, sometimes at a lower rate than what employees get taxed. So I would embrace the philosophy that having one stream of income is hazardous to your wealth. And then the third thing that I would do in regard to finances, that was also open up a brokerage account. There are a lot of online brokers right now, like the Robinhood, the Fidelities, the Vanguard. This is not at all an endorsement of them, but this is just a recommendation to give you examples. And investing outside of your retirement will also allow you to put your money to work. In my house, I say that money can't stay here unless it works. And how that looks like is that when you go to sleep, your money being invested, right, will work for you. Think about a friend friend or a family member that comes over, eats all the food in the refrigerator, takes all the hot water in the shower, right, and doesn't go to work at all. You get frustrated because they're using resources, but they're not creating value. When your money is going to work for you in the stock market, when your money is going to work in your retirement plan, where your money is going to work through your business, what it's saying is that there are times during the day when you want to go to sleep from 10 p.m. perhaps until 6 a.m. where your money is still working on your behalf in the short term and also in the long term.
You're on fire.
That's good.
Leo,
Those
did
would
you
be
want
my
to
tips.
chime in?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about the compound interest that Kezia mentioned. So this is a concept that I didn't learn until later on. And so if you can grasp this concept of compound interest, of your money making money for you, and it's just with time that it grows. I'll give you an example. So a 25-year-old who saves $500 a month with a 7% interest rate would have $1.2 million by the time they turn 65. If that same person started at 35 instead of 25, they would only end up with 570,000. So you almost double your money by starting earlier. So if you all can grasp this concept, if you're earning money, plan to start earning money, even in high school, I would open up an account. It could be a brokerage account, could be a different type of account, and start contributing to it. Even if you can't put that much into it right now, you can increase your contributions over time. So love that you mentioned compound interest. Like, Google it if you need to and look at a graph. It will change your life.
All right, here's the next one. Do you think that a person can innovate and be an entrepreneur with traditional jobs, as for example, law or political science? I'll start with you on this one, Leo.
Can you repeat it? Can someone innovate? And
Yeah.
what was that? What
Do,
was
do
that
you
part?
think that a person do you think that a person can innovate and be an entrepreneur with traditional jobs like law or political science?
Yes, I do think they can. It depends. So you can be an innovator for that job, but you can also take your skills, as long as it doesn't conflict with your current job, and create something on the side for yourself until it replaces your income from that job. So absolutely, I wouldn't put myself into a box of thinking that the only way that I can earn money is with a traditional job. I think with 2020, 2021, we're realizing that so many people are making money apart from that, that it would be unwise of us to put ourselves and limit ourselves to a box. So I would say any skills that you have, you can monetize it outside of your traditional job so that your money doesn't have a limit like your salary does, right? So the money you can earn has the power, the ability to touch so many people that you can replace your full-time income. And so yeah, I wouldn't put myself in that box.
Yeah, and just to build upon that, lawyers and political scientists have to be innovative in order to get paid. When you're working for a business, in order for them to sign your checks, they have to create value. In order for them to create value, they have to sell a product or service that people are paying for. What I tell my entrepreneurs, if you're selling a product or service that nobody wants to buy, you do not have a business, you have a hobby. If you're an attorney and you're trying to represent someone and sell your services and they tell you no, you have a hobby. So if you're working as a lawyer and you're at a firm, they're constantly asking the critical question, how can we separate ourselves from the competition? Is that in the talent that we hire? Is that in the marketing materials that we curate? Is that in the services that we provide? They're asking themselves those critical questions. If you're talking about political scientists, right? If you're going into politics right now, the nature of the way that people communicate with their constituencies are different. The way in which data is being presented is different. Sometimes people open mail. That might be older millennials, that might be Gen Xers, that might be boomers. We talk about Gen Z. I can't remember the last time Gen Z checked the mail, unless it was potentially email or a direct message. So when you're thinking about even the political landscape, and this is somebody like me, political science major, you have to ask yourself, what's going to be new, original, and different? And how can you look at what's new, original, and different and build upon that? The whole reason in me bringing up the cell phone, and then backtracking it all the way to the house phone that was connected to a wall. Perhaps you don't remember that. Ask your grandma, ask your great grandma, shoot, ask your mama. She could probably remember the phones being attached to a wall with a 6-foot cord. Is that most entrepreneurs incrementally innovate. So they look at what's already working and they ask themselves, how can they do business better, faster, quicker, and more efficient than the competition? And then they introduce an innovation into the marketplace and they give customers an option. If you're looking for a job right now, here's the perfect opportunity. Be a stellar employee, right? Introduce innovative ideas on somebody else's budget. Then you're not taking the full-on risk with the money that you're earning. Introduce a new idea to your manager. See if he can put a line item to see if it works. That's a great way to test how innovation works as an entrepreneur. That means you're creating value while you're on payroll. And then you build up your confidence, and perhaps in 3 months, 6 months, you try the same type of approach but for yourself as a business owner.
Love it.
That is so excellent. You know, you can substitute anything for law or political science here. There is no job you will ever have that you can't approach with a sense of creativity. All right, let's go to number 3. How do you develop and face challenges that you can meet in the journey of entrepreneurship?
I would like to say this. Entrepreneurs, just by their nature, are absolutely crazy people. And I can absolutely say that because I'm an entrepreneur and I'm proudly crazy. And the reason why I say that entrepreneurs are crazy is because you're being tasked to see things with vision. TK talked about that other people can only see with eyesight. Vision is you saying, this is something that I plan to create, but perhaps it hasn't materialized yet. Entrepreneurs, regardless of your religion, rely on materializing the substance hoped for and evidencing things not yet seen. That's vision. Entrepreneurs are people who can see towards the future and they have enough confidence to say, this is something that I will make real. So if you're nervous, right, if you're challenged, right, with talking to other people who can't see what that is, what you need to do is look on the inside, right? That's where the mindset comes in, right? That's why every wealth creator and entrepreneur starts with that mindset, because it's what you tell yourself, right? Your affirmations over other people's opinions. The last thing I'll say, and I want to reiterate because I said this in my speech, is that as an entrepreneur, you absolutely will learn lessons. And I want you to focus on that word that I just said. You will learn lessons, right? And most people will define that as losses, right? My business failed. I came up with an idea and nobody wanted to purchase it. If you look at it as a loss, you might quit, you might stop. But if you look at it as a lesson, you say, okay, nobody's buying that. Maybe I need to tweak the color. Maybe I need to add a feature. Okay, my business didn't work. Maybe this isn't the right time to start this type of business, but does this mean I shouldn't be a business owner? It doesn't mean that I shouldn't own this type of business. It's a mindset shift. And once you're able, again, to affirm yourself, every other opinion that you choose to listen to is just supplementary.
So good. So good. I like this quote.
So
I like
good.
this quote by I think it's Michael Jordan, but some other athletes have it. But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And with entrepreneurship, you will fail. You will have those hard lessons. And like Kezia said, you got to get back to the drawing board. But you don't fail until you stop trying, right? And so if somebody's going through like some bumps in the road, just know that it's all part of the process. Get together with some mentors, get together with some people who have vision, and see what you need to do to tweak what you have going on. And so I love that Kezia said that it's to be expected. It's not for the faint of heart. You may have people on Instagram flossing like it's all peaches and cream, but it's really not. It's hard work. It's hard work. And so I encourage anybody to get back to the drawing board and just keep going, keep pushing, because all you need to do is get it right once, right? All you need to do is get it right once. And once you get it right once, then the sky's the limit.
This next one is one of my favorites. How do you find multiple streams of income / investment opportunities while avoiding scams?
I can start
It's
with this one. Oh, go ahead, Kezia. Go ahead.
no, go Leo, I'll go after you.
Yeah. All right. So, how do you find multiple streams of income and investment opportunities? I would start with going with what's tried and true. So, when it comes to investments, I would go with workplace retirement account. If you do have a full time job or part time job, go through that route. You can look into doing the brokerage account, like Kezia said. So, I would start with what's tried and true. You can try real estate. Those are things that shouldn't necessarily have scams in them, depending on if you're going through an advisor. I would just make sure that you're working with a certified financial planner, someone who is a fiduciary, who's operating in your best interest, who's not trying to sell you other items and making or their income being dependent upon like how much money you make. And so I would start there, start with somebody who's fee only, fiduciary, operating in your best interest if you're working with someone. As far as the side hustles go, I would just do your due diligence and see, hey, referrals is how I found some of my side hustles. Is like, hey, what are you doing for side hustles? How are you making extra income? What can I do? If you're going the route of, doing a Rover or doing an Uber or stuff like that. But that's where I would start. Start with referrals and then start with a certified financial planner.
We live in the information economy, which means that on the other side of your fingertips are answers. There was a time when people had to go find an answer on the inside of an encyclopedia, a book. So, and if that book did not have an answer, they better find a library that did or wait for somebody to deliver it in the folds of a book. I like to tell entrepreneurs and wealth creators alike that you can't swim in an ocean of knowledge and drown in ignorance. That's a choice. I understand right now that there are trends happening across the internet, right? You see things that are trendy, 500 likes. I invested in Dogecoin. Now I'm a Dogecoin millionaire, 760 likes, right? Let's all invest in Bitcoin. Why? Because Elon Musk tweeted about it. But do you know anything about cryptocurrency? Do you know the ways in which Dogecoin was established? Okay, I want to be an entrepreneur, and here's a way for you to make money quickly through a blessing loom. Do you know what the origins are for a blessing loom, or have you scrolled down social media and jumped in the comments and accepted advice from somebody who doesn't even have a profile picture? What I'm hearing from a lot of people is that you're acquiring intelligence through shortcuts. But yet on the other side of Google, you can type in a keyword and get 50,000 plus search results. The ability for you to avoid a scam really centers around personal responsibility. If someone is trying to sign you up for a business, before you give them your hard-earned money that should be going to work for you anyway, you need to ask them questions. You need to do your research, and you to make critical decisions on if your money should be invested in that place. And yes, sometimes it is talking to mentors. Sometimes it is talking to Mr. Google. Sometimes it is talking to Miss YouTube. And sometimes it's, hey, I'm going to take my non-replenishable asset, which is my time, right? I'm going to take some of that time and I'm going to wait and make sure that that choice is best for me. It is impossible for any of us to project exactly what a scam is or not with your personal situation. But here's what I'm confident in. If you can swim in that ocean of knowledge and not drown in ignorance, then you can make responsible decisions, right? And even if you don't win, you will learn along the way.
Solid stuff. Such solid stuff. All right. How old do you need to be to invest in the stock market?
You need to be born.
Right.
what I say about you need to be born is when you were born and you were assigned a social security number, your parents could have began investing on your behalf. There's such a thing called a custodial IRA account, was an individual retirement account where your parents could have been investing on your behalf. It's okay if they didn't, because these are novel concepts that some people are learning just now. But if you have a social security number, brokerage accounts will allow you to register for their account. Now, generally speaking, you do also have to earn income, right? You do have to earn income. And so you must be working so that you can make those deposits. And so when you're going into the investing mindset, one of the things that I like to say practically is like, yes, you should think like Leo said. You like Nikes, think about a Nike stock. right? You like Beyonce, I think she's coming out with a line of Adidas, invest in Adidas stock. But I also like to make the recommendation that you take a look at exchange traded funds. And what exchange traded funds or ETFs are opportunities for you to invest in a fund. And inside of that fund, there are a collection of stocks that allow you to diversify your investment with just one purchase. Let's put that in layman's terms. Let's imagine that I owned a mall and I was selling investment opportunities for you to invest in the mall. And let's say I sell you 1% ownership in the mall. Inside that mall are a lot of stores. Perhaps there's an Apple store. Perhaps there's a mini Home Depot. Perhaps there's an Adidas. Perhaps there's a McDonald's. Because you own 1% of the mall, you also own a fraction of all of the different businesses inside of that mall. The great thing about an exchange traded fund is it doesn't put the burden on new investors to choose those companies that are going to be high performers. So if you're a new investor, you want to look at exchange traded funds that follow major indexes like the S&P 500, like the Dow Jones. So you want to look for things like that. The S&P 500 is the top 500 publicly traded companies. The Dow Jones is the top 30 publicly traded companies. And you want to look for brokerage accounts that don't mandate that you buy a full share. So you may be looking at a share, it may cost $100. You might be like, I don't got it yet. Give me like 2 years. I can drop $100. But right now I got 10. Right? So there are some brokerage accounts that allow you to put a little something down, like layaway. Allow you to put a little $10 on the 100 and you own a little piece of a full share. So I don't want you to think because you don't have a lot of money that you can't be an investor. If you're earning income and you have a social security number and you can choose an online brokerage account or just a broker account, then you can get access to the marketplace.
Check it out, y'all. We're getting so many questions coming in right now. And we've only got a few more minutes left. So here's what I'm going to do just to get a few more in. This next one I'm going to give to you, Leo. The next one I'm going to give to you, Kezia. Leo, how should you fight the urge to spend all your money? I've tried paying myself first, but it never seems to work. So what is the best way to save that money?
I think one of the first places I would start with is finding out what your triggers are. I think each person has, some triggers that cause you to spend. So some people, when they feel lonely, they feel like they need to spend. Some people, when they are at the mall. So if they go for a particular item at the mall, like just being there just causes them to drift into other stores and get something. And so I would find out what those triggers are for you and address those triggers, because a lot of times it's coming from something internal that's causing you to spend the way that you do. And so you really need to sit down and think about, hey, what is it that's causing me to spend the way that I'm spending? Why do I feel like I can't keep money? What kind of mindset do I have that makes me feel like I need to spend everything that I have? And so for a lot of us who didn't come from money, it's like as soon as we get it, we feel like we need to buy something to show it off that we have something. And I'm not sure what this person is spending on, but a lot of us feel like, hey, we need to have the latest thing because we need to show our friends that we have this. We need to go to the most expensive restaurant so we can put it on Instagram. So really have that conversation with yourself to see, like, why is it that you're spending the way that you do? And then think about the life that you want to live tomorrow. If you don't make decisions today, or the decisions that you make today will have an impact on the life you live tomorrow. And so think about where you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now, or next year. It doesn't even have to be that far out. And the money that you're spending today is money that could be used to make sure that you're in a better position tomorrow. Think about your parents. Maybe some of your parents didn't have all of the funds to do the things that you wanted to do. Well, you could be the person in your family to change that so that your kids don't say the same things about you. And so really think about the choices that you're making. You don't have to start with a large amount. Start with a small amount. Maybe you're having a hard time saving $100. Try saving $10 this week and be like, this week, come hell or high water, I'm going to save $10 and put it aside somewhere else where you can't tap into it, right? Put it into an online savings account just to, say that you have that. And once you get that $10 saved, then go to $20 next month, but start small. So those are some of the things that I would say. Identify those triggers, start small, and you'll be well on your way to saving what you want to save.
Awesome. Kezia, I've had so many ideas for unique products that I think would be very helpful for people, yet I just don't know where to start. How do I figure out what products to start with?
I'm gonna give this to you real quick because I see we got about 8 minutes left. So I follow a 6-step process, which I outline in my Black Entrepreneurs Workbook, but I'm gonna give it to you for free 99 because you asked. The 6 steps to, I believe, starting a successful business, but also getting to the bottom of a successful innovation is step number 1. You need to identify what problem you are trying to solve and for whom, right? So for me, Black entrepreneurs have a problem starting businesses that create jobs. How do I know that? There are 2.56 million Black entrepreneurs, only 109,000 of them are employers. So make sure that you write your problem statement in that way. It doesn't have to be my problem statement, it can be yours. Who do you want to solve a problem for? And then what is the problem? Number 2, you want to do your market research, right? So I call this step investigation. Notice we didn't talk about the business idea. We just said we're solving a problem, and now we're going to look at who else is trying to solve that problem. You want to write down what are some things that they're doing well, what are some things they're not doing so well, and then we want to confirm that it's actually a successful business. So what are they selling, and also to whom? All right. You want to do this for 2 businesses. Okay. You want to make sure that it's either a nonprofit that's getting grants or it's a for-profit that's making sales. The 3rd step is you want to make sure that you write down your idea, but instead of it being a long paragraph, we want to make it 1 sentence. I want to sell this product to this particular customer. But before you write that, you want to look at your market research and you want to ask yourself, how can you do business better than the 2 companies that you just researched? And that answer is going to come out in your idea expression, which is step 3. Step 4, and a lot of people get this wrong, right? We create something and we say, oh, I know who's going to buy it. My mom and my best friend. If they don't buy it, I'm going to have an attitude for 2 weeks, right? No, you got to write out who your customer demographic is. Where do they live? How much money do they make? Do they have kids? Where do they go to college? Where do they like to shop? You want to write down 20 descriptions about your customer. You want to get really clear about who you want to buy this product because they don't know that you exist. So you're going to have to put your product in front of them somehow, some way. Step 5 is telling a story about that customer because sometimes descriptions can seem abstract, right? So her name is Keisha. She went to Howard University. She goes to Alfred Street Baptist. She makes $30,000 to $40,000 a year. She's single. She doesn't have any kids. Every single weekend, she goes to a lounge and she goes to brunch with her friends at Oohs and Ahs. So you want to be able to tell a story with the descriptions that you just created. That's your user profile. That's your beachhead market. And then the 6th step is you want to write out what you can create with the resources that you have now. If all you have is $100, you need to figure out how you can create your first product or deliver your first service with just $100. And that's why I brought up Issa Rae. She did not have enough money to do an HBO production, right? But she did have enough money to rent a camera, get her friends to be actors and actresses, record it, edit it with software that may have cost maybe $15 or $20 and then release it for free on YouTube and get paid off of the advertisements. So how can you start small, using what you have, doing what you can, and starting where you are?
Wow. That's a great note to end it on. I want to first just say thank you to the both of you for taking time. You know, at FEE, we are very committed to spreading economic literacy and helping people achieve a sense of personal power in every area of their lives. And finance is one of those areas where so many people feel like they are pushed in a direction that they don't want to go in. It can be a little bit easier to feel powerful in other ways, but when it comes to money, we have to really face our fears and insecurities in a unique way. And I think the 2 of you, your stories, your insights, I hope as many people as possible get to hear this. I know that our students appreciate this tremendously. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy, productive schedules to share your thoughts. This has been really wonderful. For those of you who have tuned in, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting the work that we do here at FEE. And if you have any further questions for us, feel free to email us. Check us out at fee.org/rev1. We do workshops like this every month. And if you want more workshops in your classroom or anything along those lines, don't hesitate to reach out to us. All right, everybody, take care. Be financially empowered. Peace.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
attending our final session on how to attain financial freedom. We hope you've learned a few things to expand your mind and your wallet. As a reminder, by attending this session, you have a chance to win a free iPad. Make sure to review the details in the post-program email. For more content like this, follow Revolution of One on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We hope you enjoyed Entrepreneur Week. There will be more events like this, so make sure to follow Feet Online on all our social media platforms to stay updated. I hope this event inspired you to be an entrepreneur in your own life. See you soon!